Someone out there left. What the hell? Go shower really fast. I need you to go shower. Please, Daniel. Who's that? Who is that? Get out of here. Get out of here. There's a guy outside. Look.
Yes, you just saw this wasp emerge out of a dead cockroach. It spent the first few weeks of its life eating it from the inside out, before making a cocoon inside of its empty husk and emerging like you just saw. Here you can see it using its incredibly sensitive stinger to feel its way around the cockroach's brain. It'll inject a special concoction in just the right spot to turn this cockroach into a zombie, which will kindly follow the wasp right into its nest where she lays a single egg on it. Once it hatches, the larva will spend a few days drinking the hemolymph or blood of the cockroach, before finally growing large enough to burrow inside of it, where it'll first devour the cockroach's non-vital organs before finishing it off.
Did you know that Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, is really accurate? Yeah, there's not a lot of embellishing for the sake of drama on the show. Some articles are even saying that this might be the most accurate true crime dramatization ever on television. So what in the show isn't true? Well, Dahmer didn't drink blood from a bag while working at the plasma center. He drank it from a vial. And the show has Christopher Scarver attacking fellow inmate Jesse Anderson first before killing Dahmer. But according to Scarver, he attacked Dahmer first. And that is just how small the differences are between real life and the show. For more facts, be sure to like and follow.
Before you went out to pick up a man, was there any kind of ritual you went through?
I'd go to the nightclubs, drink, watch the striptease shows, and if I didn't meet anyone at the bars, I'd go to the bath clubs and meet someone there, offer them money, and we'd go back to the apartment, have a few drinks. I'd have the sleeping pill mixture already prepared. Person would drink it, fall asleep, and that's when they would be strangled.
Watching the movie Exorcist III was also part of his ritual. It put him in the mood for murder.
I felt so hopelessly evil and perverted that I actually derived a sort of pleasure from watching that tape.
Did you like feeling evil?
No, I didn't. But I had tried to overcome the thoughts, and it worked for a while, but eventually I gave in.
While Jeffrey Dahmer may say things today that make it seem like he understands what went on in his mind, he does not. All he can do is tell you what happened, but he cannot stop whatever it is that drove him to kill in the first place. Do you still feel those same urges? Do you still feel that compulsion, that obsession?
I wish I could say that it just left completely, but no, there are times when I still do have the old compulsions.
Jeffrey Dahmer says as time went on, his mind became more and more warped, and yet he was clever enough to continue to elude police and lure young men to his apartment. We should warn you, the details are very graphic.
I started having these obsessive thoughts when I was about 15 and 16, and they got worse and worse.
What were your fantasies about?
They were sexual fantasies of control, power, complete dominance. They became reality.
Was there pleasure in that fantasy?
There was excitement, fear, pleasure, all mixed together.
Jeffrey Dahmer fulfilled his fantasies by murdering and dismembering 17 young men. In time, his desires became more extreme, his deeds more grotesque. Listen to him talk about the most unnatural things in the most matter-of-fact of ways. That's when you realize that none of it has touched him.
I was branching out. That's when the cannibalism started, eating of the heart and the arm muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me. At first it was just curiosity, and then it became compulsive. Then I tried to keep the person alive by inducing a zombie-like state. By injecting first dilute acid solution into their brain or hot water, and it never did completely work.
Could someone like you be stopped? Could you be helped?
No, I was dead set on going with this compulsion. It was the only thing that gave me any satisfaction.
He became so warped by his evil impulses that he even took a victim's head with him to work at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory.
I kept the mummified head and skull of one of the victims in a carrying case in my locker at work.
Were you almost flaunting it?
Yes, but that's how strong the compulsion was. That's how bizarre the desire was. I wanted to keep something of the person with me.
Jeffrey Dahmer exhibited some disturbing behavior early on. He began drinking heavily as a teenager, dropped out of college, was arrested for indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, and fondling a 13-year-old boy. Tragically, one of his murder victims would be that boy's brother. Do you know what started it? Was there any kind of incident that you can remember?
To this day, I don't know what started it. And the person to blame is sitting right across from you. That's the only person. Not parents, not society, not pornography. I mean, those are just excuses.
His macabre 13-year crime spree finally ended when this man, Tracy Edwards, brought the police to the infamous apartment. Like the others, he had gone there with the promise of money.
He was listening to my heart, because at a point he told me he was going to eat my heart at that point. I hit him, and I
This ordinary looking drawing made by a 6-year-old doesn't appear to have anything that would be any kind of cause for alarm. On the surface, it just looks like a young kid playing in the front of their house. There's tons of smaller details in the drawing, such as his dad raking the leaves, his mom at the window, and a few cars in the street passing by. It all seems like an innocent drawing, but there's a bit of an unsettling backstory behind this. The 6-year-old boy who drew this is a very well-behaved and quiet kid according to his parents. I'll refer to him as Jake. He stays to himself most of the time, and his teachers describe him as a well-behaved child, just very, very quiet. He has a passion for drawing, and constantly draws pictures and writes little story picture books. Jake has one sibling who's currently 2 years old, who he has included in multiple pictures too. His mother says most of Jake's free time he spends either watching Cartoon Network or YouTube videos or drawing. There was no cause for alarm when his parents found this first picture. However, there was when they found a more recent picture that Jake had drawn. Here's another picture of Jake in front of the house, but maybe you've already spotted it. In this picture, there's an identical car in the street with the same person sitting inside. This time, it seems Jake is looking at the car in this picture waving. Jake's parents are not seen in this one, interestingly, but his parents were intrigued now about the car and who the person inside of it was supposed to be. So they questioned him. Jake explained that it was a car he'd always see out front and that the man sitting inside of it would always smile and wave whenever he saw him. So the next day, Jake's parents took him outside to point out the car, but he said the car wasn't there. In fact, it wasn't for the next few days, until finally, one day while Jake was playing outside, he came running inside to his parents to say he saw the car again and the man was inside again. Jake's parents rushed outside to the front to look and saw the car speeding away past the house down the block. It was an old silver Buick, and Jake confirmed that was the car. It was none of the neighbors' cars, that much was known. Jake's parents went to all the neighbors and asked if they'd seen that car sitting in the street at all, to which all of them replied they had not, but that they'd keep a lookout. For a few days, Jake wasn't allowed to play outside unless his parents were there with him. But after the car didn't seem to return, Jake was once again allowed to play freely out front. But one day, he came inside and said that the man in the car was back and was trying to get him into his car. Of course, Jake's father ran outside as fast as he could, hoping to get to the car in time, but he saw it already down the block by the time he was outside. He tried chasing the car down in his car, but by the time he even got into his car, there was no way of tracking where the car went. Once again, Jake wasn't allowed outside of the house. The car wasn't seen outside at all for almost that entire week, until one night, unexpectedly, Jake's father was about to take the garbage out when he noticed the car parked across the street. He took out his phone to begin recording and hopefully get the license plate number, and he tried to slowly get closer to the car without being obvious, but the driver clearly
I'm singing louder now.
but the driver clearly saw him, because the car turned on, then quickly drove away. Jake's father tried to follow the car and get the plate number, but he couldn't. This was the last time the car was ever seen. The car had clearly been parked outside multiple times watching the house, even past dark at later hours in the night. The driver of the car, according to Jake, would always smile and wave at him anytime they'd make eye contact with each other. And the last time Jake saw the car, the man inside started waving for him to come over, and even called out for him. Luckily, Jake was smart enough to go inside and tell his parents. It's not clear why the car would be outside even at night, considering the boy leaving the house alone at those hours would be extremely unlikely. Jake's parents brought the video to the police, but without a clear plate number, not much could be done. Jake's father went door to door asking each house on the block if they had cameras that caught the plate number, but he didn't have any good luck. The car never returned after this, but this happened relatively recently in November of 2021, so there's always a